Go. All right. On a world spinning its way to damnation amidst the fear and despair of the broken human race, who is left to fight for what's good and pure and prepare you for the first round series against Winnipeg Jets? Handkerchief Dynasty. I am, as always, your secret professor, joined by Zach Laing. Welcome, Zach.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm surviving,
Good.
slowly but surely, trying not to make any major missteps. Something that's usually ever present on my mind, but especially so during these tricky days leading into the first round for the Oilers here.
Yeah, it's stressful, right? Stressful.
It is a stressful time, and to be honest, I think it's extra stressful for one Paul Maurice. You know, he probably went to bed last night thinking to himself, well, at least I know the lines I'm going up against, and I've got a little bit of time to plan here and prepare my team, and then all of a sudden, Coach Dave Tippett just throws some new look fucking lines and pairings at him today.
Mm-hmm.
We got Kara with Archibald and Chiasson today at practice, and then McLeod, Neal, and Cassian. First off, what do you think about that?
I mean, I don't mind it. I wrote a piece yesterday saying how I kind of thought Cassian would slide in on the third line alongside Kara and Archibald, and I thought that could be an interesting line. None of the three really bring a lot of offense, but they bring a lot of jam to the lineup. That's such a buzzword that I hate, but it's true. And they've posted some pretty solid defensive numbers this year too. So I kind of speculated that could be a solid line, but I don't mind it at all. I think mixing it up a little bit isn't the worst thing. And I think whatever anybody has to say about Zach Cassian, I think he deserves a spot in the lineup for the playoffs. So. I think at the very least, as a vet, he's earned that, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens game one. Hopefully, he comes out like a bat out of hell. He's going to be an important player for this team in the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to get the benefit of the doubt going in. I think he could, if he really shits the bed, he could lose that spot. But they're definitely going to, if you have a player like Zach Cassian in your lineup and he's healthy, you're going to play him in the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
Because otherwise, what the fuck is he there for?
Yep. Pretty much. He's the physical. He's the physical wrecking ball that we all knew to grow and love in 2017, right? So, I'm intrigued to see what happens.
Much has been made about Winnipeg's depth at the center ice position. How do you feel about our two supporting centers being Kyra and McLeod going into the first round here? You think that we can feel good about that?
Yeah, I think we can feel relatively okay about it. I mean, again, Kyra is a pretty solid defensive specialist. His honest results are tremendous, but the underlying numbers are definitely there. And McLeod, well, he's looked like a vet in a very short time here in the NHL. So I've been rather impressed with what Ryan McLeod's been able to do. And we seem to generate a little chemistry with Chiasson and Neal. And what was that makeshift fourth line? And that's why I kind of thought keeping Chiasson down there would have been a good thing, because those are some big bodies that he can play with on that fourth line, and they probably won't see a ton of minutes. But hey, you know what? They might be able to chip in a couple of goals here or there. So I mean, I have faith in Dave Tippett for the most part in what he's doing with those forward lines.
We're joined by Zach Laing, news director at the Oilers Nation and the Nation Network, for Handkerchief Dynasty After Hours, part of the proud family of shows on the Handkerchief Dynasty aggregate playlist. Okay, well then let me ask you this, Zach. How do you feel about Slater Cuckoo? Are you cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs?
I'm not cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs or cuckoo.
No?
Yeah, that
no?
worked. No, I'm not sold. I'm not sold. Like I liked the player at the beginning of the year. I thought he looked okay in a relatively short time. Obviously, the collarbone injury sucked and kept him out for the year. I think it sends the wrong message to Caleb Jones in my eyes. Caleb Jones is a guy who fought really hard to get into the lineup this year. He fought really hard to work on the critiques that Dave Tippett and the rest of the coaching staff had for him. They wanted him to be a little bit more physically engaged, They wanted him to get in shot lanes, the defensive zone, and he started to do some of those things, all the while still being one of the best puck movers on the back end. Save for maybe Barry and Nurse. So I think it really sends the wrong message to Caleb Jones, and I think it's a bit of a mistake because I think Jones has played pretty well this year. I mean, I understand coming into the playoffs, you probably want a little bit of a bigger body in Cuckoo on the back end, but beyond that, I'm not a big fan of it.
Maybe there was like an actual wrong message involved. Like maybe Kenny Holland had one message that he thought he was leaving for Caleb Jones, and then a second one that he like called his tailor, his like shoe repair shop, saying, like Caleb Jones just got a call one day, and it was Ken Holland leaving voicemail being like, look, we'll be there at like 6:45 to pick up the shoes. Yeah, we'll see you then. And then he's just like, what the fuck? And then he turns on the TV and he sees that Slater Cuckoo is taking his spot in practice. He's like, what the fuck? Maybe it's just one missed call. Maybe it's as simple as that.
Very well could be.
I mean, it's nice to know at least that we've got some depth at some positions where we can really make arguments for all kinds of players to be in the lineup. It's not as though there's really like very few players outside of the top players of the main core that really has the safest spot on the roster, and that's because we got a lot of options right now. To have someone like a James Neal on your third or fourth line, or even like Cassian on the fourth line, it speaks to a greater level of depth than we've seen in previous years, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, you know what? Neil McLeod, Cassian, that could be a line that produces a little bit of offense too. And we're going to need it from the bottom six. They're going to need to find ways to score some goals. It's playoffs and it's, we got McDavid and Draisaitl, and we all know what they can do at the top of the lineup, but the Oilers really need that depth scoring to come through for them. Much like it has for a solid part of the year. But guy like James Neal is going to need to really turn it on here, I think. And I think he could be a bit of a difference maker for the Oilers in the playoffs this year.
What are you expecting out of, let's say, the Nurse-Barry pairing going into the playoffs here?
I'm expecting not a lot of defense, just like it's been all year. I mean, they're an all offense pair. It's really what they are. They're a run and gun offense pair. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because you have Kulikov Larson, with home ice advantage, you've got the ability to match your pairings for these first two games, which I think is going to be really, really crucial for the Oilers. But yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion before about Tyson Barrie. We could talk about it for hours. He brings a lot of offense, but in terms of defense, there's just not a lot there. So
we should do a stream, like a stream marathon where we just talk about the pluses and minuses of Tyson Barrie offense versus defense and see how long we can go.
Hey, let's find let's find a sponsor. We'll do up a 24-hour stream and we'll just talk solely about Tyson Barrie, and we'll just maybe we can find a way to go game by game and just show and look at all of his clips and go from there.
Yeah, it might be a fun off-season project. Yeah, it's interesting though because with the Nurse Barrie, like Riverboat Gambler, Maverick, James Garner / Mel Gibson / Jodie Foster in the Maverick remake from the early 90s, charming, out there, just in the game, surprising people, pulling a fast one.
Yeah.
And then you have Kulikov Larson, who were like, I don't want to say concentration camp guards, more like just like really like tough prison guards in some sort of like epic prison drama, about like some poor prisoner who's being abused or something like that, like Kiss of the Spider Woman. Like if Kiss of the Spider Woman was about the guards, Kulikov and Larson kind of have that vibe. So like what genre, what genre is Cuckoo and Bear then? Does it actually fit into a genre? Like I don't even know. I don't really know.
I don't know either. I'm trying to think of one. Like
I'm kind of thinking of like Yogi Bear a little bit. I'm thinking of Rocky and Bullwinkle. Like maybe it's gonna have like a 70s animation type show where like it's really good, but like when you look back at it now, you're like, man, this is really like, this would be super controversial if this came out now. Something like that,
I honestly can't think of a better analogy than that. So that's I think that's a pretty good way to describe it.
I think Bear could show up, but like he's had a bit of an up and down year. It's hard to say, you definitely necessarily expect him to have a great playoff, but he's definitely a guy that has played really, really well for the team in the recent past. And I don't know, maybe if like there's a conditioning issue this offseason or something, or I don't know what. Cuckoo's interesting to me though. I mean, do you think Russell would be like guaranteed that spot if he were healthy though right now, Chris Russell?
I mean, I don't know. Probably. Like, I think so. Honestly, I've kind of forgotten about Chris Russell. Like, I forgot that he was on this team for a little while. I don't even know.
That happens. Yeah,
I don't
that
even
happens
remember. I
sometimes.
honestly don't even remember when the hell he got hurt.
I used to feel that way about Matt Benning. Like every once in a while, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that guy." Yeah, I forgot about
I
Matt
love
Benning.
Matt Benning.
No, he's awesome. Matt Benning
I
rules. He's
always,
playing well now.
yeah, I know it's great. I was actually just looking at that the other day. But yeah, no, Chris Russell probably would be that shoe-in guy there, just based off of what he brings. But again, his last game, as I am now being informed by the Google machine, was on April 29th. So that's almost 3 weeks that he's been out of the lineup. So
See, I
still, I
think
think
if we could get Russell in on that pair, then I think we could change it from 70s cartoon to 70s buddy cop drama.
I was just gonna say buddy cop drama all the way.
Yeah.
You got good cop, bad cop, right? You got Ethan there.
Totally.
He's good, the nice cop.
But he's like the young brash rookie, got by the book, very polite, helping old ladies across the street, plays that, knows the book front to back,
Yep.
and then the grizzled vet who like can't run and has bad knees, but like knows the streets.
He's not afraid to draw his gun any chance he gets.
Yeah, like a 70s cop show, they just gun people down the street 24/7.
Absolutely.
70s,
Absolutely.
dealing with like urban blight. And then that brings us, of course, to the goaltending position. I'm really not gonna go over the well-worn commentary that really it's Mike Smith, and if that doesn't work out, we're fucked, and there's no point in even worrying about it. If you were to put the over/under on Alex Stalock making a save in this playoffs, what chance would you give that out of 100 right now?
Oh man, I don't know. I would probably give it probably plus 1,000 on a book if I was making betting odds on it. I don't see it happening. Like if Alex Stalock is in net, we got much bigger problems than just the goaltending, right?
Well, here's the question though: if Alex Stalock's in net, does that mean like society has collapsed around the playoffs? That like Edmonton itself is engulfed in some sort of social unrest? Because like for one, that means Mike Smith has gone down, which could be enough to cause like a social rift in the populace. Like we could see a type of thing where like half of Edmonton just breaks off in some breakaway enclave or something, right? And then if Koskinen gets in that, I mean, the stress level alone in Alberta is going to go through the roof. Like emergency room visits from heart attacks will spike.
I'm feeling some palpitations at the very moment here.
And then imagine beyond that, then Stalock is starting. So what the fuck happened to Koskinen? Who even knows? I really like these nightmarish scenarios though, because everyone's saying if Stalock's in net, then we have bigger problems. But it's like just imagining the litany of like craziness or the litany of crazy things that must have happened to that point. I don't know. It could be kind of fun in a weird way.
It would be absolute chaos. It would take Slater Cuckoo running a defenseman into Mike Smith, a la Marc-Andre Bergeron, right? Like that's the only scenario that I see that happening. And knock on wood, here, I think if something happens to Mike Smith, I mean, I hope that Mikko Koskinen does what he's paid to do and stops the puck very, very well. I think Koskinen's. I've been a Koskinen defender this year because beyond his stretch at the beginning of the season, like when Mike Smith came back, Koskinen was like a 920, 923 save percentage goalie the rest of the way. Notwithstanding the couple of stinkers he threw up in the last few games of the season in really meaningless games.
I don't know. The 4 goals on 4 shots was. I heard the X-Files theme when that happened. I was
that was not good.
You don't see
that
this
was no.
Like the government denied knowledge of Mikko Koskinen giving up 4 goals in 4 games.
That was pretty bad.
Unprecedented. No one even asked them. They were like, "We don't know anything about this."
Well, I mean, Dave Tippett even said after the game, probably 2 of those are on Koskinen and 2 of them are probably on some
Yeah.
poor defensive play, right? But at the end of the day, you got to make those saves. That's what you're paid to do, right? So, I mean, I think, if the Oilers have any aspirations of going deep this year, even beyond the first round, which I think is very, very reasonable, Mike Smith is going to have to do what Mike Smith has done this year, and that's play, like he is 25 and not, 39, right? So he's tapped into the fountain of youth. He managed to find it this past off season, and he's been drinking its juices ever since, and it's paid off. So,
Yeah.
Mike Smith or bust, really.
Yeah, our fates are tied to him pretty strongly. I don't think there's any doubt about that right now. Like, it's such a crazy thing. Like, I mean, there's no way that soccer goalies have this kind of, Atlas on the world on Atlas's shoulders type thing. Because like
I can't imagine it.
Right now, like the amount of like psychic energy swirling about Mike Smith, even just like his name on people's minds, if this was that really terrible show Heroes and there was that guy that could read people's minds, he'd be like driving down the fucking white mud and he'd just be hearing like Mike Smith, what's gonna happen with Mike Smith. I mean, he's been playing his ass off. He's even had a little bit of time to recuperate here. Maybe he had some kind of nagging injury, you never know. Didn't really seem like it could have been anything serious, but it did seem like there was maybe a chance he tweaked something. But
he might have been a little banged up here or there. I mean, there's the wear and tear as it happens through the year. And thanks to the NHL's absolutely god awful, horrendous playoff scheduling, forcing everybody to sit through the pain that is Calgary and Vancouver 3 times at 2:00 in the afternoon. The Oilers have had a chance to rest and let some of those bumps and bruises heal up. It's probably going to be good for a guy like Kyler Yamamoto, right? He's been banged up for the last little part of the season here. There's a couple games he was held out of too. So, give him a chance to get healthy and as much as nobody will say that they're really hurting, everybody's hurting a little bit at this point in the season, right? So little extra rest probably isn't the worst thing for these guys. But I do think, my preference would have been to see him get right into the action.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you look at Winnipeg, though, like in last episode, I basically said I'm calling this for Oilers in 5. So I'm not really giving Winnipeg much of a chance here, personally. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel like Winnipeg is really has like some legitimate chance in this, or is it kind of silly to really give them too much of a shake here?
I mean,
let's be honest. Let's be honest with the kids. They deserve it.
I think I'm just pulling up my bracket again so that I make sure that I get this right here. But yeah, I had Edmonton in 5 too. I don't see the Oilers losing this series. I think if the Oilers were to lose this series, it would be very, very bad very quickly here. We would be looking at some pretty serious changes that would have to come.
It would be a serious blow to the organization. Yeah,
it would be bad.
It could be problematic for some of their core players too, because it's like, seriously,
it could be a big issue. So I think there's a lot riding on this series. I did a radio hit out in Regina today, and they asked me what would have to go right for Winnipeg to win this series, and the answer that I gave them is the same one I'll give you here. They got to get in Mike Smith's head. That's what they have to do, and that's not an easy thing to do because although he does have his moments of chaos, he's a pretty I don't think the pretty route, strong mental goalie.
Yeah, I don't think the route to Mike Smith's head, to the interior of his psyche, has been like known to man for a while. Like I think that was lost in the Third Age, along with the same time when like the Dwarven underground city was lost and all that shit. Like Mike Smith has kind of like been he's been the master of his own domain in that respect. Seems like for a while now.
They would have to do what Chicago did last year in game 1, which was basically just shoot as many damn pucks at him as soon as you can in the game. Like they got a lot of pucks on him early, and that's where he faltered. And we've seen it happen a handful of times this year too, where he lets in some early stinkers. Now, granted, he's been able to shut the door in Grant Fuhr-esque style afterwards, but it's still something that has happened. So, I think that's really the way Winnipeg gets out of this. I mean, they're not stopping McDavid. They're not stopping Draisaitl. It's just not going to happen. Those guys are gonna run show. I could easily see each of them putting up 8 to 10 points in 5 or 6 games here this series. So, it's going to be really interesting to see. I mean, the Oilers surprisingly did a good job defensively this year. They shut a lot down, especially as the year went on. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of a game plan Winnipeg has and exactly what their lineup looks like too, because Dubois, Kopp, Ehlers, like they're all game time announcements, as Paul Maurice said. But
Yeah.
if all three of those guys are out of the lineup, or even 2/3 or even a third of those guys,
Or in the lineup, but not playing 100%. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it could be really bad. Like they're three guys that really add to the depth of that Winnipeg team. Where I'm looking at their lineup right now, and they lose a lot of depth with those guys out of the lineup. So those third and fourth lines start looking incredibly pedestrian. And for a team like Edmonton, who's going to have the home ice advantage here, there's a good chance that Edmonton could get up early and it could be a runaway train. The Oilers need to come out and win game one if they want to win this series. I was watching the Colorado St. Louis game last night, game one, and there was a stat at the beginning of the game. In NHL history, the team that wins game one of the series advances 68.8% of the time.
Yeah.
So, the
Over 2/3
odds will
of the
be
time.
over 2/3 of the time. So the odds will be heavily in whoever's favor wins game one of this series. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
I mean, not to look past or anything, but we both predicted that Edmonton will sort out Winnipeg here. So, we can assume there's a strong chance that Toronto is going to eliminate Montreal. I mean, again, they have Carey Price, anything could happen.
Yeah.
But what do you think about that potential series? Which, I mean, I think we can all agree would be a tremendous event just for the whole country and all of hockey fandom as well. But besides that,
it would be an incredible series. Nothing short of fantastic. It would be a very good series. It would be a very long series. I can see. I could see it going 7 games with overtimes. Like it's two very equally matched teams. Offensively, they got more depth up front. I think they're a better, deeper team they're a deeper team up front than the Oilers are. They've got a little bit more scoring through their bottom six than the Oilers do. Defensively, I think they match up incredibly well with Toronto. I think they're very, very similar defensively. And then in net, well, you know what? It's a big question mark for the Leafs right now. Freddie Anderson has had a horrible season. Jack Campbell went on an absolute heater here, and he's playing, the best hockey of his entire NHL career, and really helping the Leafs stay in the fight. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't know, man. There's as much as I picked Toronto to come out of that series. I think I had them in 6 games. That's a series that I think is actually a little bit closer than people give it credit for. So Montreal is a tough team. They play really hard, and it's going to be interesting to see if Toronto can match that style of play. I mean, we saw those last 2 games against Montreal, how physical those games were. And I think the Oilers are a bit of a grittier team. I think they got a little bit more sandpaper than Toronto does. So, yeah. I mean, if Montreal comes out hot and plays physical, tries to eliminate the space that Austin Matthew has on the ice, I mean, it could be a really interesting series. I in my bracket, I have the Oilers beating Toronto in the second round. So, I feel that there's definitely that chance that the Oilers could come out on top in 7 games. Again, hey, the Oilers had the second most regulation wins in all of the NHL this year. That doesn't just happen by lucking into it. It's a really good Edmonton team we got, one of the best that this city has seen in decades.
And then when you're looking south of the border, I mean, are we going to be? Let's assume whatever Canadian team makes it out of Canada, let's say, where are they going to fucking play their games after that point?
No idea. I think there's been a little bit of chatter about potentially opening up the border on a special exemption for American teams to travel up to Canada. So hopefully that happens. I mean, they kind of need it to happen, honestly, because I can't imagine any Canadian team being happy having to go and play games in the States as home games. So, you know, I don't know what the NHL's plan is there, but I think they're really banking. I think they need to be banking on a border exemption.
Hmm. Yeah, but I mean, wouldn't you kind of also just on a certain level not be surprised, given that, you know, any organization can display a certain propensity for incompetence at times, and we've seen maybe the NHL is not above perhaps making a mistake here or there once in a while. Maybe they would just be like, you know what, Canadian team, sorry, you're just gonna have to play in Phoenix or whatever the fuck, you know? Because like
It would suck.
we get screwed all the time, though. Canadian teams get screwed all the time, so it wouldn't be as though they're like, okay, we're sorry, we're having to screw the Canadian teams over for the first time. We won't do it again. It's gonna be something we're a little more used to. Who's impressed you though south of the border so far? There's been quite a bit of physical hockey going on.
Oh man, there's been some tremendous hockey. Florida's impressed me, even though they're down 2-0 in the series. I thought they've been playing the Lightning really hard. Minnesota, they're my underdog team in the playoffs right now. I got mini beating Vegas out here in this series, so that's one that I'm really keeping my eye on. I mean, hell, Colorado, they absolutely just beat the snot out of St. Louis last night. You know, credit to St. Louis, they hung in there for a good first half of the game, and then all of a sudden Nathan McKinnon remembered that he's one of the best players in the entire world, and well, you know, the rest is history, right? So, yeah, those are the ones that I'm really kind of keeping my eye on right now.
And what are your thoughts on like a player like a Bouchard? I mean, we never said like, let's say for example, instead of Bear Cuckoo turning into Russell Bear, it turns into Cuckoo Bouchard. First of all, what kind of movie is that? I think it's like a cross-cultural, like romantic comedy about a guy who goes to like northern Scandinavian country and learns the meaning of life. You know, one of those type things. Because you're on board is basically saying if Tyson Barrie wants too much and he's not re-signable, then we don't have to worry too much because you really think Bouchard is really that next guy, right?
I do. I've you know me. I'm very high on Evan Bouchard. I am. It's a hill that I have chosen to die on, and I have been in plenty of Twitter arguments over the last couple of weeks and months over this. I think Evan Bouchard has been really underrated. I know I had some concerns about the lack of usage this year, the lack of game time, the fact that he was on the taxi squad. You know, then you had that game he came in and played. I can't remember who we were up against, but he came in and scored that goal in that game.
Beautiful goal, yeah.
Beautiful goal. Looked really good. Like looked like he hadn't missed a beat. And then, you know, listened to him in the post game and he's like, yeah, you know, it's not ideal, but he's seemed to really be liking the taxi squad. It sounds like that group has been putting in some tremendous work. So as much as he hasn't been having game time, I don't know if his development's been as hurt as I kind of feared that it was. You know, we heard last Thursday while I was standing in line to get my Moderna vaccine about, you know, Tyson Barrie hitting the open market this offseason. And I think that it's absolutely the right move for the Oilers to let him walk to free agency. You know, he wants the long-term security. He wants 5-6 years. There's talk of the Oilers wanting to re-sign Adam Larson to a 3-4 year contract, you know, around that $3.5-4 million mark. I've said it all along. I think you can only bring back one of Adam Larson and Tyson Barrie. And personally, I would much rather bring back a guy like Larson, who is more of the shutdown defensive specialist, you know, brings a lot of jam in the defensive zone. And then you will have Evan Bouchard, who can take that step next year and help to contribute some of the offense that you're going to lose from Tyson Barrie. I mean, look, I'm going to try and pull it up here really quickly. But Bouchard played very limited amounts of time this year, you know, for the Oilers. In the regular season, he played in 14 games and contributed 5 points. You know, it's not huge numbers or anything like that, obviously, but he's showing that he has a penchant for offense. He's done it at every single level, and he's power play quarterbacks his entire career,
Mhm.
right? So, on his career now, he's up 21 games played, 3 goals, 3 assists.
Mhm.
So I think he's a guy who can step in, as a third pairing defenseman next year. And then you got Ethan Bear, who can, go and have a real hard offseason of work, come into camp in shape next year and look like he can slide up on the first pair with Darnell Nurse again. And Nurse Bear last year was a tremendous 1-2 punch on the first pairing. I thought, both of them were playing some of the best hockey of their career there. And Bear really helped settle Darnell Nurse's game down quite a bit, I felt, and let Nurse continue to be that um, offense first defenseman.
Mhm.
And then you still have a guy solid defensively like Bear. So, I think, yeah, the right move is to move on from Barry. And I know there's been some people, including my dad, who I have a lot of great Oilers conversations with, who've talked about,
Awesome.
well, maybe bring back Barry on a 1 or 2 year deal. I don't even know if I'm interested in that, to be honest with you,
Mhm.
because then we're talking about Bouchard's development really starting to be stunted because
Mhm.
he wouldn't have a spot in the NHL where he's ready to play. So it's going to be an interesting offseason in that sense, but I think we just got to enjoy Tyson Barrie for what he is right now. And that's somebody who can help move the puck up the ice and contribute some offense. So but it's going to be a really interesting offseason. Hopefully, one that we don't have to talk about for a couple of months here.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think there's a chance Tyson Berry says, you know what, leading the league in scoring for defensemen is something I just really like. I'm going to re-sign for $4 million a year with his team.
I mean, I think he goes to the market. I think he looks for a 5-6 year deal in a similar price range. I think he can get it. I think last year he had teams that were ready to pay him. In the $5 million range.
Mm.
And he chose to sign with the Oilers as a bit of a prove it contract. I'm all for Tyson Barrie going out there and securing the bag next offseason. I think if he comes back and re-signs in Edmonton, at any rate, I think it's maybe a worst case scenario in a sense that he doesn't get that long-term stability that he's looking for. Because it's clear the Oilers aren't ready or willing to commit to that at this point.
Mm.
Um, and again, like I said, I think it's the right move because the Oilers have a lot of good young defensemen in the pipeline right now.
Mm. What's your number one prediction for Game 1 against Winnipeg tomorrow? What do you think it's going to be like?
Ooh.
What do you think you're going to see? Just open up your mind's eye, take the POD, and look into the future, Zach.
I foresee Zach Cassian laying some big hits. I foresee him coming out and bringing a lot of energy tomorrow night. He's had a lot of time to sit and a lot of time to think and a lot of time to get pissed off
Mm.
about the type of season that he had. And I think there's more than enough people out there right now that are saying, is he really worth the contract that he just signed last offseason? I hope it comes out as motivation from him to come out and play some mean hockey tomorrow night. And then I see Connor McDavid getting 3 points as well. So
Yeah,
I
he's
think,
gonna come out like a bat out of hell, like
yeah,
from the
he
opening
is.
face-off. Yeah,
He is. I'm going to be absolutely hammering the over on McDavid points tomorrow night.
yeah. All right, dude. Thanks so much for coming on the show and giving us a little breakdown here going into Game 1. I think every way that we can help the listeners pass the time in this death march between the end of the regular season and the beginning of the playoffs is very, very helpful and very much helpful for their spiritual and mental needs. I do want to shout out our new patron, K-Man. We'll give you a special shout out again today. And to all the other patrons, we love you. If you want to become a patron and further monetize our love and emotions, go to patreon.com/handkerchief dynasty. There's lots of fun bonus content up there and special bonus episodes as well. Zach, where can the young people and the old people follow you?
Well, the young and the old can find me on Twitter at ZJLaing, ZJLAING. You can find me at OilersNation.com. And we've been doing, just as a quick little plug here of my own, we've been doing some State of the Nation live stream podcasts every Tuesday afternoon. Those are now being bumped up to every morning after a game at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. So there's going to be a hell of a lot of content that we're producing here. Really, really excited about
Is that on
what myself.
YouTube or?
Yeah, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, Potato Phone, whatever you got, you can find a live stream. So we're here, there, and everywhere. So we're really looking forward to producing a lot of content and hoping that people come and give it all a good read.
Yeah, everyone should. Awesome stuff. And yeah, you can always check out Zach's stuff at the various Nation Network sites. Just click on his username and you'll get a huge compendium of his many written works.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Zach, we'll enjoy your evening and enjoy the game tomorrow, and we'll check in real soon. Okay, brother?
Yeah, likewise, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Yeah, anytime.